Well, welcome back. The show is interactive, and so can you use the hashtag Breakfast Daily for us to hear what you're thinking? The WhatsApp line is 05505885832. Now, we are in the season, we've just turned the curve from the Harmattan, and we are entered into the rainy seasons. And as you may have noticed if you're in Accra, that the rains have been coming hard and fast, basically across the country, at least in the southern belt, we are getting a lot of rains. And all of these rains also mean other things, right? Because in time past, we haven't really managed spaces as well as we should have. And so the issues of flooding becoming an issue that is of concern that we always have to think about, whenever the rains come. But there are various, entities that are responsible to help in this situation. I think that we are looking at NADMO, but NADMO is usually after the fact, when the floods do happen, but then I also think that if you're doing disaster management, one of the things is to move people to higher ground, and places of safety so that we don't lose lives, so that could be one of the things that we're looking at. But then there's also the issue of MMDAs and dredging of channels that are the reason why floods come. Blocked channels are the reasons why we have flooding. And then, of course, you have the meteorological survey department that is responsible to give us updates on time so that we are aware of what's about to happen, maybe 3-4 days in advance, and so on and so forth. So these are various angles and perspectives, that we need to be aware of as we are entering this season of rains. Now, the Meteo Department, we have a story here on citynewsroom.com. Let me just read that real quick for us. NADMO partners MMDAs for dredging works as the rains intensify to curb flooding. The story goes on to say the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, says it's collaborating with the Metropolitan, Municipal and District Assemblies to desilt choked drains following the onset of the rains. NADMO says the indication from the Ghana Meteorological Agency is that there will be more rains, hence the need to adequately prepare to avert or mitigate the impact of the floods. Now, speaking to City News, the communication director for NADMO, George AEC, said officers of the organization have been deployed to flood-prone areas to sensitize people living there. In flood-prone areas, the sensitization is going on. It's important that NADMO partners with the assemblies to do some desilting and dredging, and we will ensure it goes on. Some parts of the country have been hit following the recent downpours. In Accra, portions of the Central Business District, Sahara, Odorna, among other areas, were not spared the perennial floods. A 30-minute rain also ripped off homes of 150 people in the Ulo community of the Jarapa municipality of the Upper West region and displaced more than half the community. The Meteorological Agency has urged citizens not to disregard weather warnings issued by the agency to protect lives and property. And I ended by reading this last part here. According to the agency, they have upgraded their systems to ensure that they release real-time weather updates as and when necessary. The latest warning from the agency comes on the back of recent rainstorms which have caused havoc. Deputy Director in charge of forecasting at the Ghana Meteorological Agency, Joseph Tete Potofi, has also advised the various assemblies to begin desilting choked drains, which normally contribute to flooding in most parts of the country. So that's a quick story there to basically set the stage for the conversation this morning. I think that we need to get to a point where, do you see that video of a chief?
Ashalaja chief.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pouring
refuse
refuse from his house into the floods.
And he's been arrested.
Yeah. So I was appalled when I saw that video, first of all. I didn't know who he was at the beginning. But to find out later that he was a chief, I was even more disgusted. I could not believe that this is where we've come to as a people. The chief is a representative of his people. If the chief will do this, can I really rail accusations at his people for doing the same?
Yes, everybody is guilty. But you see, I always look at things happen, then what? Okay?
Yeah.
Because people know they can always get away with
Yeah.
such things, you know. So he's been arrested. What is the level of punishment he's going to be given?
Yeah.
Is that going to be deterrent enough, you know? So these are some of the kind of issues, you know, that we have to deal with, because people know that I can do whatever I want, you know, not much really can happen. And so if we don't check some of these things, you know, and for me, NADMO is now looking at dredging choke drains, you know, calling for assemblies to desilt. The rains are here.
Yeah, here.
They are here.
Yeah.
You know, we've had all these months.
The entire
to deal
Harmattan
with
season, we could have been doing
this issue.
desilting.
The rains are here.
Yeah.
You know, today if it rains, there
Yeah.
will be floods.
Yes. Yes.
The rains we've recorded in the past days, there have been floods.
Yeah.
So we sit down, you know, grant interviews,
Yeah.
and then that is where it ends.
So I can even tell you, Frema, that in the October rains that came, there had been some desilting that had gone on along the Achimota Tesano to Circle stretch, right? They had actually opened up
Yeah.
desilted. Trust me, there's a spot around the Ghana Telecom EcoBank area,
Yeah.
which actually the water sits on the road. During the October rains, there was no water on the road. After every rain,
Yeah.
the water just disappears, right? I said, wow, this can actually happen in Ghana.
Yeah.
Guess what? A few months later, the rains come and there's water sitting on the road today as we speak.
I drove
You
through
drove
that
the water.
this morning, you
Yeah.
know, and
And that's just silt. That's
and for
all
me-
it is.
And you see, this is the issue. We don't wait for the problems to come.
No.
You know, so we just sit down.
Exactly.
We talk about the problem, and then we don't really do so much, you know. And some of these kind of dredging issues and all, we
Yeah.
can't just dredge one part of an area
No.
and leave the others.
No.
It has to be done holistically,
Yes.
because if we are doing it, other people are not doing it, work done is zero.
Zero,
You know,
yeah.
so we just sit down, grant interviews. Okay, so we intend to do this. This is in the pipeline. This is what we are expecting to do.
Yeah.
And you realize that at the end of the day, when the issues come, we are still where we are,
Yeah.
running around in circles, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
whatever we are doing, does it address the flooding problem? For me, this is the basic thing that we look at.
Yeah, let's talk to Engineer Abdullahi Mahama. He's an analyst in the built environment. He's also a building and road engineer. Engineer, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, David.
Yeah, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. We are about 17 days into the month of Ramadan, or 16 days, yeah, so gradually we are on it.
Yeah. Congratulations to you on that as well. Yeah, and let's talk about the season that we find ourselves in. The rains have begun already. I have noticed certain places water is still sitting on the road, as opposed to disappearing a few minutes after the rains. What should we be doing at this point in time?
Your colleague in the studio rightly said something. He said,
Yeah, that's Frema.
Frema.
Yeah.
Frema, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine.
Great.
I was saying to the engineer and kind of
Exactly.
That's right. David, I would like you to do this assignment for me.
Okay.
I want quality and not quantity. So that's what I've been doing. You pick my Twitter handle
Okay.
at Mahama_Abdullahi.
Okay.
Now, on the 29th day of March, I stated that, there's someone in
Okay.
When you pronounce it, it's not relevant because it's not a sensational topic at the time until the devastation comes. I stated on my Twitter handle that on the 29th, 2 weeks before the slight inconvenience at the waiter,
Yeah.
so this time the spillage was massive
Yeah.
with the first rain. So I made that statement 2 weeks, I think 13 days before the thing happened. So my colleagues were asking me, what did I see? And I said, well, I'm fortunate to be in the built environment. I'm an engineer for all these 19, 18 years in the field. And these are the things that we do every time, we research every time. What I've seen at the wager there is a time-ticking bomb. It's yet to explode. A lot of houses are ongoing, construction is still ongoing on the wager stretch where we have the loose material due as a result of the winning of sand over the years.
Yeah.
And the fact that we are still not zoning that place as a dangerous or a security zone to prevent houses springing up like mushrooms on top of the mountain just to have a view. You prefer to have a view and to be submerged in the silt one day, or you prefer to be on an area quietly and enjoy your life?
Yeah.
I don't mostly want to blame the individuals who may be putting out the building party. There are stringent laws in this country which denies or would disapprove of any construction on any proposed dangerous area identified by the assembly. Here, Ghanaians always say, because of our land tenant system and this and that, sometimes we don't have absolute control. It's a joke.
Yeah.
The law states that before you put up any structure, the first requirement is to alert the assembly. With your drawings to the assembly, they would have to come and look at the location, whether it's a swampy area, it's a waterlogged area,
Yeah.
it will be injurious to other residents around, and then they will give you ways and means by which you have to tackle the situation. If you don't do that, they will legitimately deny your request for the permit for the construction.
Yeah.
So you can own the land, but the law is supreme. Because we will not allow you, because you have the money to put up a structure, you will now infringe on the right of everybody, and you're going to make it so injurious to anybody who stays around, because more or less that place is a channel. And because you feel like the land is yours, you can lift the land up and then block the water course and allow the water to go through other houses. So the laws are, if you look at the Land Use and Spatial Planning Act of 2016, one of the clauses is the 119. It says that the officer, in this case the assembly, may without notification to the developer or the person who stood at the building, alter, abate, remove, or demolish a structure if that structure interferes with the environment or is a nuisance to the public right of space.
Yeah.
I'm just paraphrasing. So the assembly has that power. Now, if you look at what look at, she rightly said something that we don't just desert one area. Let's say that we're not stretching.
Yes.
It's upright. The water that is falling directly at Capright is a minute volume. It takes a collector or a collection, what we call the catchment area, a bigger catchment area from Brekusu, Ajimenti, Kwabinya, Dome, Achimota, Christian Village, Abofu, to gather all that water through the Abofu stretch before it gets to the Aveno area. So if we don't distill those areas. In 2018 or so, or 19, I was on your program, in the morning program. And then the government by then had given about 200 million Ghana for the then Minister for Western Housing, I think the state, Minister for State, in charge of Western Housing, to distill those stuff. And then you carry the statement that the mama says that we are sinking more money down the drain. And what I said was that the order has been lined with a concrete item.
Yeah.
There's a concrete item. So, naturally, when it rains, nobody puts silt into a gutter. You can talk of polythene bags and the rest, but for sand, no human being will carry sand into the drain. So if you're having from Aveno or from Capright to Odo to Circle, about 3 kilometers, and over 60% of the drain is filled with silt, then you should know that there's a problem, there's a challenge upstream. Now, when you get to Aveno, there are these concrete slabs that were done from that Aveno new plan area, ABC, the water that comes to join the, what do you call it, the Capright one to Abofu, to the Odo. The slabs have been removed over 6 years. I've been writing on my Twitter handle, it's on my Facebook. Your crew, the then Mensa Wilberforce Mensa.
Yeah, Wilberforce.
And then Jifa
Ametam.
Jifa Ametam.
After I came to the studio, we went to the place to do fact-finding mission. They telecast on it. As we speak, there are more collapse of the slab. When they collapse into the drain, it reduces the space of, the channel of flow for the water.
Yeah.
That's why you have what we call sectional flooding and toppling, turbulence. So now it is eroding all the sand from that side. And just at the back of the ABC towards Domi to Brekusu, there's massive construction and massive deforestation. So once the people who are putting up the buildings or construction around the Brekusu and towards the Domi area are not grasping their place or they are not lining the drains, you will sit at the door here and keep on distressing on yearly basis when the problem itself is just about 3 kilometers away.
Okay.
And this is not fine. I've said this several times on CCTV. And so the authorities would not listen. And when the rains are about to come, then that knee-jerk approach will come and just do some charade. We just come and be moving some fields and be advising Ghanaians to do what? Nobody, like I repeat, nobody puts silt. No human being, reasonable human being, will put silt into a drain.
Yeah.
So when you start to have over 70% or 60% of your drain filled with silt, question yourself. And that is what we have to start doing as a country. We cannot finish in 1 year. But since we started echoing this or we started hammering on this thing, if government decides to have done just about 10 or let's say 100 meters from 2017 or 2015, because it was before 2015 anyway, that construction was done by the then President Kufuor, constructed by Interbeting.
Okay.
We were able to release the Averno area with the flood. And it served the purpose until the slab started collapsing. And since they are collapsed, it's just behind the media center. If you are from the new Achimota to the Shell Police Station heading towards Mawako, watch your right and see how many slabs are inside the drain. They are beginning to reduce the channel of flow. This is not magic. This is science. This is engineering, common sense. And this has been aired on most of the media houses. So how come authorities who are there, the Ayawasa Metro, haven't they seen this? Why are we thinking money at Averno, always distressing the Odo over hundreds of millions of Ghana cedis? When the problem is just a stone throw, which we can use the same money to do that as we do a routine removal of the silt.
Yeah.
Because like I said on your program, I said that at the time that they gave the money for the desilting, it was going to take 271 days in excess to finish the desilting. And the rest were about 2 months to come. Did you plan well? So having plans.
So
it's not pathetic that we have all the engineers here and we keep on hammering. But
let me ask you, so who is responsible for, number one, the felling of trees, the removal of earth cover at the Brekusu area when it comes to the construction and all of those things that are going on there? Who is responsible ultimately in that area? But then also, who's responsible for the slabs that are coming off to fix those? Can you mention the ultimate duty bearers?
Yes. The first one, you see, the estate developers who are constructing at the, what do you call it, the Brekusu area. They are big companies. Once they are going to do their construction, obviously expect them to create the land before they can start the construction. It is the duty of the assembly, the EPA, the NADMO in that area to have a very good program. When you start with this your construction, this and this are what is going to happen downstream. So you have to put in measures for us to know the tree cover. Remove the topsoil, do your soil test to know the stability of the ground, the bearing capacity of the ground before you do your construction. But what is the next item on the bill after you are done with, or during the construction stages? Can we start the process of trying to clean this area or start to do line drains? Because you are going to be the end beneficiary, because you are doing your estate to sell for corporate and individuals. So you have to have this line drains bringing water all the way from your facility upstream to the downstream. Maybe when you get to the roadside, that is the government's responsibility to continue. But you cannot complicate the issue right from the top there. So the assembly, I don't want to be blaming issue when it comes to this issue on political. Every assembly in Ghana has been given a planning officer, a physical planning officer, professional, who is supposed to advise the committee when they meet for consideration and approval. There's a work head who is an engineer or a building technology who is supposed to understand how the building has to be constructed in order that it doesn't affect the people down there. There's a national coordinator who is part of the issuance of permits at the assembly. There's a EPA, there's a fire service, there is a chairman, there are 2 members of the assembly. There are 2 of the assembly members who are part of the committee, and one of them is the chairperson of the committee in the assembly, one of the assemblymen, and is chaired by the municipal coordinating director. Look at the embodiment of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so if we don't get issues being resolved down upstream, and you want to come to Accra and start to blame the government of the day or whoever it is, the central government, something ought to be done at the top there, and that's my move. I want my engineers to be more professional when they have been given the assignment to handle assemblies and municipalities.
Yeah.
And that is what, if you share the responsibility up there, then the people down there will have to bear the brunt of the issue. And then the above one, where I'm talking about the slab, is the government of Ghana.
Yes.
That is the Ministry of Works and Housing.
Ministry of Works and Housing, okay.
They have to go in there, but somebody ought to report to them and constantly remind them. Because across the country, everybody has a challenge. So when all the regions bring their challenge to the head office, or let me say the Ministry of Works and Housing in Accra, it takes somebody's intuition from the assembly to constantly remind the people and the danger and the cost. If we don't do this in the next year, it's going to exponentially increase to about maybe 3 times the cost. So you as a professional at the assembly, you will travel in and constantly remind those who matter. So that at least it can be catched, because if for over 7 years or 8 years, the above stretch, about 15 slabs or 20 have not been factored into any budget, then you have to ask the assembly engineers or the municipality, the MMDC who are there, what are they been doing since the time?
Engineer, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time and your insight into these conversations that we've been having. We'll be speaking with Engineer Abdullahi Mahama, who is a building road engineer and consultant.
Engineer said something, and I think that we really need to pay attention to that. He said that he's calling on his colleague engineers, to attach some kind of professionalism, to attach some kind of honesty, due diligence. Now, when you present your budget, for a contract and you are awarded, don't cut corners, because look, these kind of problems, you might be living in Airport Hills, you might be living in cantonment, but the ripple effects, will get to somebody close to you. And so for you, I mean, if you think that you are cutting corners, you are doing things, shoddy works, and just to make sure that you save some cities, it will come back to bite all of us. When the roads are flooded, I always say that, look, if you live around Ouija, if you live on top of the hills, you have a beautiful view, your house is beautiful, but if the right thing is not done, when you get down there, we are going to be in that traffic. You get it? So one way or the other, the problem concerns all of us. And so it is very key that you brighten the corner where you are. Wherever you find yourself, your contribution, do it and do it well. You just don't think that it's not going to affect you. Look, we all do things in this kind of way. So you find a chief throwing rubbish in rainwaters, and then there's flooding, and then they are calling on central government. Meanwhile, we contributed with our own hands to create the problem. Look, you can call on the politicians. If they can, they will do something. If they can't, nothing will be done. At the end of the day, we are the ones bearing the brunt. So it behoves on all of us to make sure that we do the right thing while we call, for better policies, for good regulations, for implementation. We equally have a role to play. You don't muddy the waters at the top and come down asking who did this. You don't do that. So we all have a role to play. Otherwise, now the rains are in. When they ask of people should move to higher grounds, it is not the president moving. You are going to find a place to move. So you do the right thing, you demand the right thing, and also contribute in making sure that you play your role.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, so the rains are here, and for me, I don't know what we are going to be doing. Maybe we should start talking about the rains coming in October. Look at measures that we are putting in place, because for rains in April, May, June, they are here. And it
here.
doesn't look like we've well prepared ourselves, you know, to deal with these kind of situations, you know, so this is it.
I mean, engineer did mention that the last time they were doing dredging was 2 months before the rains came, and meanwhile the dredging was going to take 271 days to be done. You know, so
the rains will come and go.
Just think about it. It's like, what are we doing?
Kind of knee-jerk approach. So now the rains is here. You know, what do we do?
And a lot of it is like a charade. It's like, let's do so that people see that we are doing. You know, kind of thing. It's ridiculous. I mean, anyway, we've got to take a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more conversations.
You're welcome back. This is Breakfast Daily. Now, before we went on the break, we were having a conversation on the rains, you know, the floods coming in and how we are positioning ourselves as a country to deal with this and probably also to find a lasting solution to the flood and its related problems. Now, it's also very important to note that, you know, if we don't deal with these kind of things, it affects so much, you know. Look at how we now see Easter in Kwewu as a huge tourism deal, you know, and the rains marred everything on Easter Sunday in Kwewu. But before we talk about what the rain caused in Kwewu, we've been joined by Mr. George AC. He's the PRO for NADMO. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. AC.
Oh, it's a privilege to be with you.
Right, so quickly, let me find out from you, how is NADMO positioning itself to deal with the floods this time around?
Yeah, thank you. As always, we've readied ourselves for the floods. My Director General, Honorable Eric Nanajiman Prempeh, tasked all our regional directors and the district directors to liaise with the assemblies. You know, per the Act 927, the District Disaster Management Committee is chaired by the District Chief Executive and the regional by the regional minister. So we're partnering with them to see where we need to do collaboration to defill or drains and co. We are doing it. Where it is the sole thing of the assembly or government itself, as we speak, the door is being dredged by the Ministry of Works and Housing, that's government. And there are other places too that the assembly is doing the silting and all that. So yes, we are readying ourselves for the onset of the rain. Right,
so you have been dealing with disasters, you know, and flood is something that every year we have to deal with it. Per your research, per what you've come to understand, when do you think would be appropriate, you know, to do the silting, to do our dredging? Is it during rainy season? Is it during the dry season? When will we have a better effect?
Yes, when rains are about to set in, because when you do it too early, things will then come in again and then they are likely to choke. So at the nick of time, when the rains are about to set in, when you do it that time, it's more effective than doing it earlier or in the course. And in the course of the rainy season too, you can continue to do that because, you know, a lot of sand is washed into the drains. And so you need to do continuous desilting and dredging to have a very good effect or impact on the objective.
Right, so Pepe, understand, and how many times in a year do we have to do desilting, do we have to do dredging? Because you rightly said that it has to be some kind of continuous practice.
Yes. Yes, I can't put a figure to it, but as many times as possible, because once it rains and the rain is over, when you go to the drains, you see a lot of sand washed into them, and they virtually choke or block the passageway. And so if at that time you have the resource, you should be able to do the distance. You take out all the sand and other debris or residues that have been choked in the drain so that it will allow the free flow of water in the next rain.
Right, now, would you advise on evacuation, you know, because you know that people around, for instance, Weja area, the SCC area, you know, when it rains, it's a disaster, a terrible one at that. Yeah. Now, are you thinking, you know, of lasting solutions? Maybe people shouldn't be living in this area. And how does that affect the operations of NADMO?
Yeah, people shouldn't be living is a policy decision by government and the assemblies and co. We can recommend that it's not safe and for them to continue to live there. However, once they are still there, what we tasked our officers to do is to identify places we call safe havens. And when these can be places that are on higher grounds, a church, a football park, a school building, whatever, where people can seek safety, be at risk, and then go there when the rains are in. And after the rains, they get back to their homes to put their acts together. These places are identified as safe havens. So you go there temporarily for safety. And when the rains are over, you can get back to your places and put them in order. I agree with you. The places you mentioned are dangerous places, not too safe. Sand is washed onto the roads virtually and making it very difficult to drive on. And so, yes, the people around the area, some places have been filled. You realize there were places that water passed, and when you drove on that road sometime, you saw that those places were being filled. In fact, I saw stop work and co in some of those places around Titigu. But you realize they paused for some time, and for whatever reason, because the filling had begun, it compounds or aggravates the situation of everybody within the area. I agree with you on that.
Right. So an area like, so you've mentioned that, certain places will be identified as safe havens, to take people there temporarily. So I want to believe that you've been expecting the rains to come in this year as well. So if you live around Weja, Titigu, Adabraka, Dansuman, when there are floods, when your home is overflown beyond its bank, you have nowhere to go, water in your home, where do you identify as the safe haven? Where do we go? So for instance, if tonight my home is flooded, tomorrow morning, where should I go? And I live at Weja.
If you live at Adabraka, there's a Catholic church, big one in the area. That is an identified place. Okay. Weja, I don't have this thing. There's a data there, but I don't have it before me right now. But these places have been identified. I know too for Lake Loche. They are looking at the stadium itself, the Independence Square, and all those places. So these are places that have been identified. A lot of places, of course, have been identified that people can access. We don't only identify, we also teach them how to access those facilities. Because sometimes when the rains are heavy and you try to go on your own, it may wash you away. So how do you go to that place, in case the rains have started before you took a decision to move to that place? Because you've seen that the rate at which the flood waters is rising is likely to give you problems. Then how to access those places, also talk to the people or show them so that they can comfortably or safely move to such places. But we always advise they move earlier before the flood begins to rise.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Isi, for your time.
You're welcome, my sister.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time, but I really wanted to push him on one particular issue. He sounded almost fatalistic or helpless when he said that like several times a year we have to desilt. My point is, silt comes from somewhere. Why don't we stop the silt from coming? Then we don't have to desilt. Do you understand? Silt comes from somewhere. This is what engineer was talking about.
Yeah.
You stop it at the point where it's leaving because nobody carries silt and goes to dump it in a gutter, right?
But David, I agree with you on that.
Look at the Weja. Look at the McCarthy Hill. No, not McCarthy, Weja, for example.
Yes.
There was a time there was no
construction works and stuff like that have also contributed.
There was trees and foliage across the entire side of the hill.
But for me, I think that around this time when, it's obvious we don't have money, some of these things require huge sums of money. Why can't we also implement some of the existing regulations, policies that we have? For instance, the Operation Clean Your Frontage. Why are we not making sure that this is done and done properly, So if at least we can clean our environment as citizens and leave maybe the streets, the bigger ones, for government to do, rather than also allowing the government to come in to manage these kind of drains, these kind of small spaces in front of our own house. These are all contributors. Look at what the chief was doing. You know, so if we are desilting, if government is stopping the silt from coming from somewhere, and we are still doing this, we still have a problem.
Yeah.
So I think that, look, if somebody is found doing this kind of thing, his punishment should be as equal as murder.
Yeah,
because
that's
people
what
are
it
dying
is.
out of floods.
People die as a result,
and it
so
is
therefore,
some of these actions.
yeah, it's homicide. Totally.
We have to take it seriously,
Yeah.
so that people know that something would
Yeah.
happen. I think in this country, our problem is if this goes on, nothing will happen.
Yeah.
And that is where
And
we
that's
are,
what
where
people-
we are.
Yeah, exactly.